Hi everybody, and welcome to the rules clarification video for Solo Champions League 705, which is Aggression Heroes versus Kang and the Anachronauts. So today I'm going to go through kind of the somewhat confusing progression through the actual scenario. So there's three main stages, but four main schemes and all these things. So we'll go through all those things, what comes with you as you go from one stage to the next, all those things. Also discuss briefly the timing of the forced interrupt that Kang I and III has, where you get +2 attack or add a threat to the main scheme, as well as the timing of the toughness and temporal shield, or how you deal with it when Kang has both of those. Let's start off by talking about setup and stage 1. So for setup, you'll see from 1A, you will take these Kang's Dominion. You will not put them in the main encounter deck, so you'll put them aside. You'll also remove your obligation from the main deck, so that also won't be in there. So that's different than what you might expect. It's because there's a whole bunch of obligations actually in the main encounter deck that are not your hero-specific ones. You will flip over to 1B, and when revealed, you're going to have to deal yourself an encounter card. So you're going to start the game with an encounter card. So on your first turn, you're going to actually have 2, or maybe more if other stuff happens. Kang will come into play and have toughness. And also note that we're playing Expert, so Expert Kang actually will say at the bottom left, Expert Kang, so all the cards associated with Expert Kang will actually have that. So there will be 6 different villain cards that say Expert Kang down at the bottom. So that is getting ready for all of this. Now you're going to move on. Well, first of all, if the main scheme gets up to its threat threshold of 7, then, or target threat, then you lose when you're on the first stage. How you're going to advance from the first stage to the second stage is actually defeating Kang. But what's really important here is you actually don't advance to the next stage until the end of the phase that you're in the middle of. So if you are in the hero phase, you'll still keep on, you'll put Kang aside, right? So he's removed from play because you defeated him. But you will continue playing your turn without any villain in play, so you can no longer target the villain. The main scheme will still be in play, so you can do stuff that targets the main scheme, even though you probably don't have much reason to interact with the main scheme at that point. When you've actually done all that and you've finished your turn, you will then kind of do all the stuff, which is going over to 2A on the main schemes. If you defeat Kang on the villain turn, which can happen through Retaliate, you will actually still play out the rest of the villain turn. However, the villain will no longer be present, so the villain will no longer be able to activate. So if Kang goes to attack you for his main activation and gets defeated through a Retaliate effect, and then you later draw an Assault card, which would force Kang to attack you, then nothing happens. So you can kind of luck out in terms of how encounters go on that turn that you defeat Kang if you actually defeat him on the villain turn. Then what will happen is this is as you advance toward stage 2, you're going to look at 2A. You're going to, first of all, take any side schemes that you had in play, and you're going to remove them and replace them with acceleration tokens. Now, these acceleration tokens are going to stay on main scheme 2, which is actually not something you're interacting with, so you're not going to see these acceleration tokens until you get to stage 3 of Kang. However, this can actually be really helpful because if you have something like Rampage that is going to actually put something into play when you defeat it, it might actually be better to take the acceleration token for the third stage as opposed to having to deal with the encounter card that will come out here during the first stage. So I actually find that pretty helpful to consider with my side schemes, which ones I'd rather defeat or just leave and get replaced with the acceleration token. So again, this acceleration token is going to stay on 2, main scheme 2, and actually not interact with anything during stage 2. It's only going to come in at stage 3. You'll then flip this over, and this will just kind of get set aside, because what you're actually going to do is you're going to reveal a random stage 3A. It's solo, so you're just going to pick one of them. Remember, we have one of them that is not actually involved, so there's only 3. And so you've got, let's just say I drew this one. So you're going to create your own game area, right? That's what I'm saying. Main scheme 2 is kind of set aside. So now we're interacting in this area that is just going to be with the Scarlet Centurion. So you're going to add Kang to the game area. You're going to deal yourself an encounter card again. So you're going to have an extra counter card when you advance to stage 2. You're going to flip this thing. It comes in, all of these come in with 2 threat on them, right? You still got this extra encounter card. And we have some stuff associated when this gets defeated, or when this gets completed, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But what I really want to focus on is some of the other things that happen here. So we already talked about what happens to side schemes. Side schemes get turned into acceleration tokens. But what else happens to some other things? Well, first of all, the villain comes into play, is going to have toughness again. All the Kangs have toughness. Anything that was attached to the original Kang is actually going to get removed from play or get discarded. So if you have an attachment on Kang or a status card or a status effect, all those things will get discarded. And that is in contrast to normally when you advance from stage 1 to stage 2 or stage 2 to stage 3 of a villain, those status cards and attachments actually stay. So that's different with Kang. They get removed. That's got the big old 0 here. The things that come, which is going to be the green 1, are going to be any obligations that are on you, any attachments that are on you, and any minions that are engaged with you. So anything on Kang is going to leave. Anything attached to you or kind of engaged with you is going to come with you. And then the exception to that is the side schemes, which gets turned into acceleration tokens. Next, I want to look at how you advance from stage 2 to stage 3. Remember, in stage 1, you could advance only by defeating Kang. Here, there's actually 2 different ways. The first is you could, again, defeat Kang. When you defeat Kang, Kang gets removed from play, but then you have until the end of the phase before you actually advance to the next stage. So the side scheme or the main scheme will still be out and those sorts of things. The other thing that could happen is you could let the main scheme, or not let it, but have it, hit 9 or its target threat level, and this would also cause you to advance to the next stage. So you can see here, after this stage is completed, place 1 set aside Kang's Dominion face down under there, and then at the end of the phase, remove Kang and this stage from the game. So if this main scheme gets to 9, you leave both Kang and the main scheme in play until the end of the phase. So this means if Kang gets defeated, or if this thing advances during the villain turn, which is when it would most likely advance, then you still actually finish off the villain turn. So you're going to draw cards. You could get more threat added to this scheme. You could have Kang actually attack you, all those sorts of things, even though you've kind of like technically you're going to advance, you still actually have to finish that turn out with Kang and the main scheme present. That's if this thing actually tops out at 9. If you defeat Kang, Kang is removed from play, you still finish the turn, but Kang will no longer be able to actually attack you or to scheme. So any encounter cards that you might have to draw to finish off the turn, those types of effects won't happen. Other things could happen, right? A minion could come into play or other things like that. The other key difference here is that if Kang is defeated, you do not have to get one of these Kang's Dominion cards for stage 3. And if you let this thing actually go to the threshold of 9 or higher, then you're going to take one of these Kang's Dominion cards and you're actually going to bring it and it's going to go to stage 3 with you. let's look at preparing stage 3. So technically what actually happens is when you finish stage 2, right, which is main scheme 3, the numbering's confusing here, but this is stage 2. When you finish stage 2, you're going to move actually back to the main scheme 2. You're going to grab any acceleration tokens that are on there. Remember, any acceleration tokens that have shown up in the game up to that point are actually kind of set aside, not impacting the game, and now they're going to show up and they're going to start increasing the threat that gets placed on the main scheme. So reveal Kang. Kang comes in with toughness again. Add him to the game. Reveal each face down Kang's Dominion. Remember, this only happens if you actually let the main scheme get completed, like get to the maximum threat. Then you're going to bring Kang's Dominion into play. Otherwise, if you defeat Kang, you don't need Kang's Dominion. Kang's Dominion makes it so Kang cannot take damage while it's present. And when you defeat it, you get an encounter card. So it's a little bit of a hassle, of course, but it doesn't have any awful effects like dealing extra encounter cards or anything. It's just preventing you from damaging Kang. Flip over to 4B. Now we're going to go find our minion, our nemesis minion, wherever it is. And I just want to talk very quickly about these nemesis minions because this is puts into play engaged with your character. It's not when revealed. None of these nemesis minions actually have when revealed effects, or have when revealed effects. So in this case, it doesn't matter. But Avalanche, for example, actually does have a when revealed effect, so you would not trigger that when revealed effect for Avalanche. But let's look at these real quick. Viper. So when she's engaged with you, she reduces your hand size by 1. Importantly, that only happens when you're actually drawing cards. It doesn't mean you have to discard a card when she comes out. The other one I wanted to look at real quick is Crossfire because he has Quick Strike. Quick Strike only happens if you're in hero form. So this could be an incentive to actually advance from stage 2 to stage 3 if you're playing Hawkeye in alter ego form. And there's a couple ways to do that, right? You could have a minion defeat Kang, or you could actually just let the main scheme thread out. So that is setting up for that final battle with Kang III. Again, things that come with you and things that don't. Any attachments on Kang himself from stage 2 are going to get discarded. So if he had tough or stunned or an attachment, those are going to get discarded. Of course, he actually comes into play with tough, so that's not the tough you would discard. It's if he had toughness on him when you advanced him, then you would discard that, or when you advanced. So those get discarded. The things that come with you are any minions engaged with you, any obligations attached to you, any attachments attached to you. So that's the same as before. Now this time, instead of the side schemes evaporating and turning into acceleration tokens, they actually just come with you. So that would be the difference here. The things that come and the things that stay are exactly the same except for how side schemes work. Finally, I want to talk about a timing piece and I want to talk about an interaction. So the timing piece has to do with this forced interrupt that Kang I and III both have. So this is when Kang attacks you, either place 1 threat on the main scheme or he gets +2 for this attack. And the question is, when do you have to make this decision? So when you have to make this decision is before you actually assign blockers and before you reveal a boost card. So what you do is Kang activates against you. You then decide, okay, is this going to be for 1 threat or for +2 attack? You then assign your blocker. So I'll say I'm going to use Spider-Girl. I grab a boost card. I flip the boost card. I reveal it. Damage happens on Spider-Girl. So all that stuff needs to happen before you've actually assigned blockers, reveal boost cards, any of those things. The other thing I wanted to look at is this interaction that you can find on Hall of Heroes. And the question is, what would happen if Kang has Temporal Shield equipped, as well as a tough status card? and what is the order in which any of these would be cleared or removed. And this is actually slightly counterintuitive because usually status cards have priority over everything else. But Boggs replied and said that what actually happens is Temporal Shield will resolve completely before the Tough status card. So the Temporal Shield, if you go do damage, all the damage is going to get absorbed by the Temporal Shield. The Temporal Shield will go away, and the Tough status card will remain. And then the next time you attack, next time you do damage, you'll be able to get rid of the Tough status card. Graceclaw sent in a couple last rules clarification suggestions just as I was finishing up the video, so I'm going to just sneak these in at the end. So the first, I kind of alluded to this, but I didn't actually say specifically, but what happens if you actually acquire any acceleration tokens during stage 1? What happens to those? And for this, you have to think about the fact that this is a multiplayer game, and to deal with acceleration tokens and side schemes when everybody was on the same main scheme and then going off to their different ones, what they chose to do was basically punt acceleration tokens forward all the way to stage 3 and then turn those side schemes into acceleration tokens, because that was the idea of how they punt them. So any acceleration tokens that you actually acquire on stage 1 are going to be on that 2B main side scheme, where all those acceleration tokens don't actually impact stage 2, but they do come around for stage 3. The other question is, what happens if you draw Shadows of the Past after you've already revealed or seen and defeated your set aside nemesis minion? And specifically, this card actually is looking for your nemesis minion only in the set aside area. So if it can't find the nemesis minion in the set aside area, if your nemesis minion does not enter the game this way, this card gains Surge. So you'll still actually reveal the side scheme, shuffle the cards into the deck if you draw this during stage 3, but the nemesis minion will stay wherever it is because it's already been taken out of that set aside area. And so it's going to get Surge, plus you get all the crappy stuff. So that's exciting. You get Surge and the crappy stuff, but not your nemesis minion. And this is actually in contrast to when you advance to stage 3, because 4B says each player searches the encounter deck, discard pile, and set aside area. So no matter where that minion is, it'll get pulled in, unless of course it's actually already in play because you got a Shadows of the Past during round 2 and then decided not to defeat it. And to end off this video, I'd like to thank Graceclaw, who has consistently been sending me suggestions for rules clarifications, and it's always appreciated. And I'd also like to thank Bob and colleagues from the Card Text for looking through my written up step-by-step of how this all proceeds to kind of make sure that everything makes some sense. So that was really great to get some people who are just deep into the rules of the game to make sure that I have all this straight. And thanks for watching.